Our next speaker this afternoon is a native of Fort Worth, Texas. He has earned his degree in journalism from the University of North Texas and attended graduate school at Texas Tech in Lubbock. When I was young, I used to call that Lubbock. He has worked for various newspapers, including the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, where beginning in 1968, he served as a police reporter and general assignments reporter covering stories locally in Europe and the Middle East. All right, after a leave of absence to serve with 4th Army Intelligence Unit during the Vietnam War, he became a military and aerospace writer and an investigative reporter. Beginning in 1976 until his retirement in 2007, he taught a course on the assassination of President John F. Kennedy at the University of Texas at Arlington. In 1989, his book Crossfire, The Plot That Killed Kennedy, was published to critical acclaim and reached the New York Times bestseller list, the nonfiction bestseller list also. It became the basis for Oliver Stone's film JFK, on which he served as chief consultant for both the film and the screenplay. In May 1997, his in-depth investigation of UFOs, which he published in his book Alien Agenda, was published and eventually translated into several foreign languages, becoming the top-selling nonfiction UFO book in the entire world. From 2000 to 2007, he taught a course on UFOs at the University of Texas at Arlington, becoming perhaps the first person to teach about UFOs at a college level. Other books that he has written include Rule of Secrecy, The Terror Conspiracy Revisited, The Rise of the Fourth Reich, The $1 Trillion Conspiracy, and his latest book, Our Occult History, concerns the origins of humankind and the possibility of extraterrestrial intervention. He's won several Associated Press writing and photography awards, including the Aviation Aerospace Writers Association National Writing Award and Newsmaker of the Year Award from the Fort Worth chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists. In 1993, he received Freedom Magazine's Human Rights Leadership Award, and in 2015, he was presented a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Consciousness Life Expo. He's appeared on every television station, every radio station, every cable channel. I'm just looking at the list. And he has spoken at this conference before as well. I mean, that's probably your proudest moment, right? All right. I got to tell you, the first time that I met our next speaker, him and I were on the speaking docket in Pensacola, Florida, if you remember. And there's almost always a panel discussion at these conferences. If you've been to some of them, you know that. We used to have one at this one also. And so Jim and I were sitting on the panel discussion. We were kind of down on the end of the table right next to each other. And nobody was asking us any questions. Jim, you got a couple. I didn't get any questions. Everybody was asking, I don't know, Whitley or Linda or somebody, you know. And so we're bored. All right, this is not good. All right. So we're sitting up at the table. We started acting up. Okay. Now, our mics were off. Nobody could hear what we were saying. But the moral of the story is that time I spent with you at that table made me love you as one of the best researchers, because this guy has a fantastic, biting sense of humor, just, sarcasm. And on top of that, he's probably one of the biggest excrement disturbers in the business. Okay. Now, one thing we love is a good excrement disturber. Okay. So, join me in welcoming Jim Marrs.
Thanks, bud. Oh, boy. With friends like that, I don't need enemies. All right. This is great to be with y'all today, and it's great to be back here at the Ozark UFO Conference. I have lots of good memories here, especially, I think, from what they call it, the Texas Room, or the Longhorn Bar. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, lots of late night discussions there. Okay, there's so many things I could talk to you about today, but I think y'all might be hearing about my experiences with remote viewing aliens. First, let's qualify the audience. Everybody, if you know what I'm talking about with remote viewing, raise your hand. Oh, yay, good. Okay, maybe I don't have to go too far into that then. Let me see if I can get this thing programmed up. So, first I'll start off by telling you that I'm not a babe in the woods about this stuff. Long before I knew about remote viewing and long before I made some really high-level contacts, as a journalist for about 50 years now, I have been very fortunate in having the opportunity to speak with many people who are very knowledgeable about the UFO situation. Some of these you probably recognize: Dr. Edward Teller, father of the H-bomb, Colonel Philip Corso, I'm sure you're familiar with his book. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, I interviewed him at one time. This was his post-pro-UFO stage, okay? He started off hired by the government to go around and poo-poo UFOs, you know, but he slowly came to the realization that there really was something there. And he was in his latter years when I interviewed him, and he was quite positive about the fact that we have been visited by non-human intelligences. I think he got in big trouble when he went to Michigan way back there, and a whole college had had a UFO experience, including the dean of the college. And they sent Hynek there, the government did, to try to tell them that what they saw they didn't see. And he held a press conference and explained to the world that they had seen swamp gas. And that really got him in trouble. But there's an interesting side to that, because at that time, those good people in Wisconsin, they got very upset about the fact that they were told they couldn't tell a UFO from swamp gas. So they contacted their congressman, Gerald R. Ford, and that was a mistake, I guess. But this is interesting because Ford at the time got up in Congress and said, this is an affront to the sensibilities of my people, and I'm going to hold a committee, and we're going to have a committee hearing, and we're going to study, and we're going to find out what the truth is about UFOs. Well, that never happened, did it? But he got appointed president. So I guess in Washington it serves you well not to look at UFOs. Bob Dean, I think most of y'all know Bob Dean. He was the highest level enlisted man. He was, I think, a sergeant major, I think, in NATO over in Europe. And as such, he was allowed to look at some of the secret books and stuff. And he is a grand fellow, and he and I have gotten to be very good friends. Unfortunately, he's really getting along in age, I guess, as we all are. And but he's really sharp, and he knows his stuff. Bruce Maccabee, he's kind of a photographic expert, has dealt with a lot of government projects having to do with UFOs. And since he's kind of connected to the government, he kind of plays it close to the chest and he's not out front and he's not outspoken about all this, but privately he'll tell you, yeah, there's some really neat stuff and strange stuff going on. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who just recently passed away, that was a loss. Sixth man to walk on the moon. He has been very out front. He not only says, yes, there are aliens visiting the earth, but that we have gained their technology, and that a lot of the stuff we think is modern science is actually based on ET technology. And Joseph Blumrich, I added him because I interviewed him. He's interesting. Briefly, y'all may know about the book he wrote called The Spaceships of Ezekiel. I don't know if y'all have read that or not, but Blumrich was a NASA scientist, and he got to reading in the Bible about Ezekiel and about the craft he saw, the fiery wheel in the sky and blah, 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 and had the head of a lion and rotating wheels and all this stuff. And he said, well, I'm a NASA scientist. He said, I can disprove that. That's not a flying saucer. That's just mythology. But the more he studied it, the more he realized that it was a fairly accurate description of a landing craft. And he said he does not believe that it was an interplanetary spaceship or anything, but it was probably a shuttlecraft, to use the Star Trek vernacular. And so he, too, became a believer.